Welcome to Lesson 1. In Lesson 0, we looked at the whole course. Now we zoom in on the map itself. I know the tempting part is the tool list. Search operators, reverse image tools, company databases, social media tricks, they all feel useful. But if we start there too early, learning becomes a pile of bookmarks. You collect websites, but when someone asks, "Can you check this claim?" you still do not know where to begin. So today we build the route: question, sources, evidence, judgment, and output. Keep that chain in your head. Every later tool should have a place somewhere in that chain. This lesson solves direction. Without a map, every tool looks equally important. A reverse image search engine looks useful. A business registry looks useful. A social media search trick looks useful. But useful for what? Are we trying to find the original source, verify a screenshot, check a company, or prepare a short report? Once you have the map, the question changes. You stop asking, "Which tool should I open?" and start asking, "What part of the investigation am I in?" That sounds small, but it prevents a lot of beginner confusion. The final goal is not simply, "I can search well." Search is only the first door. A real OSINT task asks for more. What is the question? Where did the evidence come from? How strong is it? What does it support? What does it not support? And how should the answer be used? Imagine checking a company. Its homepage says it is an industry leader. That is not enough. You may check registration records, court records, penalties, hiring changes, supplier signals, and news archives. Then you still need to write a careful judgment. Maybe no major public risk found, or maybe cooperation risk appears elevated, but more verification is needed. That is the target. Not just finding material, but turning material into reviewable judgment. The workflow starts before search. If someone says, "Can you check this company?" your first job is to make the request answerable. Do they mean legal existence, cooperation risk, reputation, ownership, a specific claim about the company? After the question comes boundaries and sources. What can we lawfully check? Which sources match this question? Then we preserve evidence, verify claims, analyze what the evidence supports, and deliver the result. The loop matters too. If new evidence appears, you may need to go back and adjust the judgment. That is not failure. That is how reviewable investigation works. The 16 stages are not separate islands. They are one route. At the beginning, we build the foundation. What OSINT is, what intelligence means, what legal and ethical boundaries look like, and how to ask better questions. Then we move into sources and collection: search, public records, images, maps, accounts, companies, network assets, and social media spread. After that comes data organization and analysis. Finally, we practice reports, briefings, and full projects. So when a later lesson looks technical, do not treat it as a random tutorial. Ask where it sits: question, sources, evidence, judgment, or output. The first group is slower on purpose. Before touching tools, you need to know what counts as public information, what counts as evidence, what counts as judgment, and what lines should not be crossed. Here is a simple example. Finding a person's public post does not automatically mean you should build a personal profile and spread it. Finding a negative article about a company does not automatically prove fraud. The method needs legal sources, minimum necessary use, and careful wording. This group gives you the guardrails. Without guardrails, better tools just help you make bigger mistakes. The second group asks, where do public clues come from? Search engines are one source, but they are not the whole world. We will look at company records, court records, media archives, maps, satellite images, social platforms, domain records, certificates, public databases, and sometimes paid or official channels. The key is not to collect everything. If the task is screenshot verification, you may look for the original post, archived pages, text fragments, and image traces. If the task is supplier review, you may need registration records, lawsuits, penalties, hiring signals, websites, and industry news. Same internet. Different question. Different source map. After collection, the problem changes. Now you may have screenshots, links, dates, names, reports, maps, account handles, and quotes. The question becomes, What does all of this actually mean? This group teaches organization and analysis. We build timelines, rate sources, compare explanations, look for counter-evidence, and express confidence without overstating. For example, if a photo appears in an old article, that supports old image reuse. But it does not automatically prove the entire story is false. Analysis is the work of keeping that boundary clear. Practice is where the course becomes real. An investigation is not finished just because you understand it in your own head. It needs to become something another person can use: a short report, a timeline, a source table, a risk matrix, a briefing, or a visual explanation. Delivery forces clarity. If you cannot explain the source, the evidence, the confidence level, and the limits, the investigation is not ready. That is why the later stages include projects and review. We are not only learning methods. We are learning how to hand over a judgment responsibly. Do not study each lesson like a video you simply finish. Treat it like a small working loop. First, understand the concept. Then connect it to a case. After that, learn the method and do a small exercise while the idea is still fresh. The important part is the output. It can be tiny: a question list, a source table, a screenshot record, a timeline, a verification note, or a 2-sentence judgment. If nothing remains after the lesson, the learning probably stayed too abstract. There are a few beginner mistakes worth naming early. One is tool collecting. You save 20 websites and still do not know which one answers which question. Another is jumping to conclusions. One lawsuit becomes "the company is bad," one matching username becomes "same person," one old image becomes "everything is fake." A third mistake is poor evidence recording. You save a screenshot but not the link, date, source name, or search path. A week later, even you cannot review your own work. The course map is meant to train the opposite habit: question first, evidence next, judgment with limits, and output that can be checked. Different learners can use the map differently. If you are new, follow the course in order. The early lessons give you the language and boundaries you need before tools become useful. If you already work in security, risk, compliance, journalism, research, or business analysis, some sources may look familiar. Still, do not skip the thinking lessons too quickly. Many OSINT mistakes happen because people overstate evidence, not because they lack tools. If you mostly want practical skill, focus on the exercises and outputs. Build the table. Save the source. Write the judgment. Watching is not the same as doing. The output for this lesson is simple. Make your own learning map. Write down why you are learning OSINT. Is it for company verification, news verification, security risk, content research, everyday decision-making? Then mark the parts of the course that matter most for that goal. If your goal is company verification, you will care about business records, court records, source evaluation, financial signals, and report writing. If your goal is news verification, you will care about source tracing, image verification, geolocation, timelines, and confidence language. Finally, choose one small practice question. Something real is best. Can I verify whether this company exists? Or, can I check whether this image is old? A real question gives the map a reason to exist. Let's close the first lesson. The main idea is simple. OSINT is not a pile of tools. It is a workflow for turning lawful public information into reviewable judgment. You now have the map: mindset and boundaries, sources and collection, data and analysis, practice and delivery. Whenever a later lesson feels technical, bring it back to the map and ask what part of the investigation it supports. In the next lesson, we define OSINT more carefully. We will separate it from hacking, casual searching, and curiosity-driven digging, and we will build the basic language for the rest of the course.